patience almost became a jewel sandwich. I've been waiting for so goddamn long for the big old fucking execs at Capcom to finally acknowledge the awesomeness, the limitless awesomeness that is the Resident Evil remake. The remake of the original Resident Evil. It came out on GameCube back in 2002, and this kind of threw me off so much because I'm like, god damn, 12 years. It's been 12 years since that shit came out. I'm like, wow, that's kind of crazy. They're finally remastering it, in HD and all that shit, and putting it out onto the current gen systems. So we got Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and we've got PC. I am crossing my fingers and hoping that 360, PS3, and Wii U will actually be in the crosshairs for this kind of a release since, it makes sense. But I guess that's probably going to be dependent on whether or not this actually succeeds or not. But something like this is what I've been hoping to see happen. Because you have to understand that whenever it comes to survival horror, and even an illustrious franchise as big as Resident Evil, I consider the remake some of the cream of the crop out of both categories. When it comes to what you want to get out of a survival horror game and what you want to get out of a Resident Evil game, the remake on GameCube pretty much did it all in spades. And everybody will pick and choose their favorites and stuff, but this is just, it's hard to argue how awesome that it is. And that's really a truth. Considering that this is how remakes should be done. And I know lots of people are always like, oh my god, remakes, oh that's fucking stupid, but this is how you do a remake proper. That's how the fuck you do it, is the Resident Evil remake on there. So, granted, there was a re-release with the Archives Edition on Nintendo Wii, but not a lot of people even knew it was on there, let alone actually picked it up, and this game actually ran into that same exact snag. Unfortunately, along with Resident Evil 4, it wasn't getting the stupid insane amounts of sales that it was getting until it showed up on PlayStation 2. Now, I actually argue if the remake had showed up on PlayStation 2, in addition to Resident Evil 4, it would have done as well. Now, granted, we're going with something that's the old school style, just in a much more modern sense, and a game that was changing the entire foundation of the series. So, granted, two completely different beasts, but it still remains to be seen, would it have done better? I think that it would have. But this is the first time that we would have seen the actual remake on a non-Nintendo platform. So, all people who have Sony systems, all people who have Xbox systems are finally going to get their hands on it. And if you've been a PC-only player, then there you go. And I think it's kind of cool, but again, the more options, the better. That's how I always view everything. Now, it's kind of interesting to note some of the things that they're going to be doing with this. They're actually redoing a lot of the character models, similar to what they did with Resident Evil Revelations. Whenever they ported it from the 3DS to the actual consoles, they went in and they upped the polygon count, and they also tweaked a lot of the textures on it, since obviously because of the upped resolution that the newer systems are capable of, you can make these look a shit ton nicer. So, obviously, that makes a lot of sense. And then cleaning up all the backgrounds, because it uses the pre-rendered backgrounds, a lot like the old school games and the original trilogy on PS1, Saturn, N64, etc., Dreamcast, yada yada yada. But I thought that was kind of cool. They also have the option of two different control schemes. The one that everybody is well aware of, that they introduced within the remake, and then the tank-style controls from the original games, which I can imagine a lot of people aren't going to dig something like that, but I'll be honest, that's how I'm probably going to play. And you might be like, no, that doesn't even make sense. Why do that? But it's just, I don't know, for me, since I've been playing it since the beginning, it's something that, if you saw any of my Let's Plays of Resident Evil, I control that shit like a dream just fine, no fucking questions asked, so I might end up doing that just for kicks. Shits and giggles and all the other fucking fun stuff, even if it's a pile of shit and I had to go and fucking crown it. But I thought it was kind of cool that they were doing that. They also have two options for the aspect ratio. 4:3, which is the original way that it was introduced, just basically a little square like the old tube televisions. And 16:9, take advantage of the modern day widescreen format, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously, they would do something like that. They just, in general, announce it, seeing this announcement, I'm like, holy fuck. The thing that had me kind of irked, though, was that we're not going to be getting a physical release outside of Japan. So everybody in PAL regions, everybody in North American regions and NTSC, we're going to be completely shit out of luck when it comes to something like that, but I won't say that it's going to be completely, impossible for that to occur, considering that the DuckTales remastered that Capcom actually ended up putting out, that did get a physical release over the course of time. Like, initially, they brought it out and you got a case with a fucking code in it, and then a pin. And I thought that was silly as shit. I'm like, why do you have that? There's nothing inside. Like, there's fucking nothing in there. You have a spot for a disc and there's nothing goes in it. Now we have physical discs for it, but this is something that kind of bugged me. And here, I'm going to give you an example. Right here, this is Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil Code Veronica. These are the HD remasters, but guess what? We didn't get physical copies of it. So I imported it. That's how much I want to go and have that. And as a matter of fact, right up here, there it is. Try to get this out without going and fucking up all my stuff. Biohazard Chronicles HD Selection. Now, if you know about Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles on Nintendo Wii, then you already know what this is. This pretty much is the same exact thing, except for it's done on PlayStation 3. And because I want to have a physical copy so much, again, I went and I imported it, because it's region-free system, so fuck it, why not? But I'm hoping, again, crossing fingers, hoping that the powers that be actually understand that there's a large amount of people out there that would like to be able to have a physical copy in hand to jam right into their fucking system and play the living shit out of. So I have my Resident Evil Remake copy sent down there with the rest of my GameCube games, and I have the Archives Edition sent over there with all my Nintendo Wii games. So I would like to actually have this on there. And I am happy to see that PlayStation owners and Xbox owners are actually going to be getting their fill of this, but I do feel that Nintendo owners are kind of being left out in the cold, so why not just bring it on Wii U? At the very least, bring it out on Wii U. But I want to see it on PS3 and 360 as well, but I'm just talking about the bare fucking minimum right now, if it's possible. And it's interesting to note about something else with this. I started coming across a startling amount of people that were actually kind of pissed off and agitated by the idea of something like this even being announced, saying, it's a remake of a remake of a remake of a remake. Meanwhile, this isn't. It's a fucking port. Do you even understand what the fuck the word remake means? Or is it just a buzzword that you're going and tossing about with little or no fucking sense of what the word means? You're just kind of being pissed off for the sake of being pissed off. And every time that I see belligerent fucking idiocy like this running rampant, it always just makes me wonder, when the fuck are you going to be happy about something? I mean, this title right here, okay, the remake on GameCube, people have been saying, oh man, I wish I got a lot more recognition, I wish I got a lot more sales, I wish it would come back out or something like that, I wish Capcom would pay attention to it, and it's happened, and then there's people pissed off. That makes no fucking sense to me. I mean, when they ported Resident Evil 4 in HD, nobody was in there crying up a big fucking storm. When they ported Resident Evil Revelations, nobody was crying up a big fucking storm. When Resident Evil 2 and 3 and Code Veronica were all getting ported to various systems, nobody was crying up a fucking storm. Now that we're getting something that, by the time that we get it outside Japan, will have been 13 years. 13 fucking years since it was made, and you're pissed off about that. Headmeat says what? Headmeat makes go duh? I don't fucking understand this kind of shit. Well, it's just a cash-in. If it was a cash-in, they would have been putting this shit out like day in and day out all the fucking time. They actually said themselves, we listened to the fact that a lot of people want to go and see this happen. I'm happy about it. I mean, fuck, you were pissed off about Resident Evil 5, pissed off about Resident Evil 6. Nobody, for whatever reason, played Resident Evil Revelations, which is one of the best Resident Evils that's come out in recent memory, and the remake didn't get, any fucking love whatsoever because it got overshadowed by Resident Evil 4, and that is the fucking truth. I like both games, but I still prefer, me personally, I prefer the actual Resident Evil remake, and some people might cry heresy, but I have my fucking reasons. It's my opinion. Get the fuck over it. But point being is that game actually needs more exposure, and it's really the truth. It's too damn good of a game. And here, let me put it to you like this as well, if this doesn't sink in. If we've had over a decade pass, so currently 12 years, by the time we get old, it'll be 13 years, since a lot of people had even known about the game. That's an entire generation of gamers that don't know about it, potentially. Really think about that. When it came out, by the time it's going to be released over here, a kid could have been born the year they came out and is now 13 years old. Mindfuck. I remember still reading about that shit in game magazines, being like, holy fuck, that looks so amazing, I can't wait for it. Every time I saw screenshots, I was just sitting there chomping at the bit, being like, oh man, I can't wait to get my hands on the game. And then when it came out, I got the game, played the living shit out of it, enjoyed it a whole bunch, but I was like one of my only friends that had a GameCube at the time, let alone a copy of it, which kind of sucked. But I mean, I had like one other friend with a GameCube, but he didn't have that one. But just thinking about that, I'm like, man, that's a long fucking time for people to have gone without seeing some shit like that. But this also might be them testing the waters of, you know, a certain other game that we want to see remade within a franchise. Resident Evil 2. If they see something like this and we're like, okay, we're going to go and put this out and then kind of test the waters to see if there's any kind of interest within a product like that. And if it does well. Granted, they aren't saying something like that, but you got to really understand, like, a business savvy person who's going to be going and like, alright, we're going to gauge the audience reaction. Let's try this and see what the hell happens. Meanwhile, go and make a fucking buck off of it. But, and I know there's gonna be people like, well, I'd rather it just be a new Resident Evil. Well, guess what? There's a lot of fucking people that this is a new Resident Evil to them. Do you know I came across a fucking stupid amount of people that didn't even know that this was even, like, around. And it's come out on 2 different platforms. They had no idea. And it's been out for years. A big time series, so big as Resident Evil, yet nobody fucking knew about this. And it wasn't just like some isolated situation of, oh, you came across 1 person, or 2, or 10, or 12. I was coming across it because I've been on tons of different websites, going and reading up on, and actually talking to people about it, and I kept on saying, they're just like, oh man, a remake of the original Resident Evil, that sounds so cool! I'm like, you didn't know about it? No! Did they actually remake? I'm like, it's right there, and they're like, holy fuck, how did I not know? And I'm like, wow. Is there more people like this? And I kept seeing them, I'm like, holy shit, this might actually be a good thing. All I can say is that I'm happy about this. I am happy to see one of the best Resident Evils get more mainstream exposure on 2 systems that, you know, everybody's like, they don't have enough games. Well, there you go. You're going to be getting something like that. Downside, you have to wait until, like, the early part of next year, but, well, we're rounding the bend right now into fall, so this year's going to be pretty much over anyhow. But there you have it. It's Resident Evil Remake from GameCube / the Archives Edition on Nintendo Wii, and it's going to be coming out looking all super splendiferous, even nicer than it looks on a Dolphin emulator, without some of the little fucked up corruptions that that version has here and there whenever you're playing it. Yes, I've actually tried it out, by the way, but it'll be out there for everybody to try. I'm just hoping that we aren't only going to get a digital copy, and if so, I'm just like, ah, fuck. And I saw that, like, Japan has a limited edition, too. Like, it has this nice little book and stuff that opens up and all this shit that's inside. I'm like, that's what I want. Give me that version, which, granted, you know, I have an import collector's edition of Resident Evil 6 up there. I have the Biohazard Anniversary Collection there. I have the Stars Raccoon Police Department limited edition down there. So I've done my fair share of Resident Evil limited edition imports before, but still it's something I just want to see them released to the masses without having to go and jump through hoops to go and obtain it. And then get gouged on fucking importing fees, which sucks a big fat fucking hunter dick. Just gotta think about that. Or Crimson Head dick. Fuck it. I mean, we're talking about the remake. We might as well roll with that. So, opinions, thoughts, feelings about this? Are you actually excited about it because you give a fuck less about Resident Evil in general and you're just like, I just clicked on a video for fucking hell of it? Do you think that this is a cash cow? Do you think it's a waste of time? Do you think they ought to be doing a whole bunch of other stuff? Or do you think this is something that everybody needs? Either way, it's opinions and thoughts and feelings. At Like Assholes, we all have one, and you already heard everything that I had to go and say on the entire matter. So anyway, this is Alpha Omega Sin. As always, nerds, nerdettes, and gamers. Game the fuck on.